Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and today we have something a little different for you. This is not going to be your typical World of Tanks random battle. No, Akazuki, it's not. What's different about today's video? Well, good question, I'm glad she asked. Today's video is actually something of a murder mystery. This is Alucat123, and he is extremely unlucky today, and he's extremely unlucky for two reasons. First, the obvious reason. He's in a tier 7 heavy tank, and this is a tier 9 battle. That's only one reason, Jingles. What's the other one? That guy right there is the other one. The Spare Panzer 1C, the Spig. Does not initially appear to be one of the worst and certainly the most ignorant light tank driver I've seen this year. But appearances can be deceptive. Initially, at least, it certainly appears that the Spare Panzer is doing something useful, heading off down to the south in company with the EBR to spot the cap. And initially the Spare Panzer does do something useful, but he very soon gets bored of being useful to the team, as we'll see before too long. But let's not get too hung up and focused on the misadventures of the Spare Panzer. Today's video is a murder mystery after all, and the Spare Panzer's adventures, or lack of them, are merely an amusing and brief footnote to the main event. So let's take a look at the teams, because while I say this is a tier 9 battle, and that is technically true, this is 357 matchmaking, so there are only 3 tier 9s on each team, 5 tier 8s, and the rest, like Alucat himself, are all tier 7s. Stops to take a speculative shot at the obvious camping bush down on the far side of the swamp, and then continues on his merry way. Now, at this point in the battle, and it's the last time in the battle, he's going to be doing something useful, but the Spare Panzer is actually doing something useful. He's in the bush in the middle of the field on Malinovka, doing the scout thing and spotting targets. And while the majority of the big boys are all battling it out at the top of the hill and in the centre of the map up to the north, the junior division down here to the south has at least found something to shoot at. The enemy Lynx, thinking that he was going to be sneaky, make an end run around the bottom end of the map and perhaps go artillery hunting. Well, he's just going to have to learn what it's like to live in a world of crushing despair and disappointment, because there's no way he is getting past this lot. So, while the guys down this end of the map are dealing with the Lynx, and he very nearly gets away with it, let's just take another look at the team as a whole, because, as I said, it's a tier 9 battle, but only just. There are 3 tier 9s per side. But Alucat's team have already lost their first tier 9. The Waffenträger Panzer IV charged off ahead of everybody else at the top of the hill and became the first casualty, and then the T10, one of the team's other tier 9s, has just become the second casualty. So the team are down 2 of their 3 tier 9s, with only the Object 430 still remaining, and the enemy team still have all 3 of theirs. So it's fairly safe to say that this team is not going to be carried to victory on the shoulder of its top tier tanks. And in fact, you're looking right now at the tank that does the most damage and earns the most experience. And Alucat's going to do it by being safe and methodical. He's not going to be doing anything flashy. Can't really afford to do anything flashy when you're a tier 7 in a tier 9 game and the enemy team still have all 3 of their tier 9s. This is of course why Alucat came down here in the first place and didn't try to fight it out at the top of the hill. There is clearly another hidden enemy down here somewhere. Yep, there he is, the T-34 2G fake tank. The T-34 100 to Alucat's left took a big hit. The EBR charged ahead fearlessly and did his job. Paper tank destroyed, disposed of, and speaking of paper tank, well, the FE4202 isn't actually a paper tank. It was built, it does exist. It was only ever a prototype, but it does exist. You can see it at the Tank Museum at Bollington. What's interesting at this point is the fact that one team is so seriously getting its arse kicked, despite the fact that all of its top tier tanks are still intact. And they're getting their arse kicked by a team who has lost 2 of their 3 top tier tanks. You see, this has always been held up as the perfect example of exactly what is so wrong with the 357 matchmaker. It puts too much responsibility and potential power in the hands of those 3 top tier tanks. So, using this battle as an example, if you're on the team that has the 3 tier 9s who are most capable of thinking and breathing at the same time, your team's probably going to win. And yet the enemy team still have all 3 of their tier 9 tanks alive. And only one of Alicat's team's tier 9s is still alive at this point, the Object 430. And spoiler alert, the Object 430 isn't even going to finish in the top half of this team on experience earned. So how do you explain this one? How is the enemy team getting its arse spanked so badly when it's still got all of its top tier tanks intact? I mean, they can't be that bad. They're still alive, which is more than you can say for the Waffenträger Panzer IV, who got confused, thought he was a heavy tank and charged off ahead of everybody else at the top of the hill, or the T10, whose strengths lie in its firepower, mobility and decent frontal armour, who went into the low ground at the top of the hill, where everybody could penetrate his top armour and became the second casualty right at the start of the game. In fact, looking at the distribution of the casualties amongst the two teams, it's just bewildering. Alicat's team have only lost their best tanks, with the exception of the Object 430. Meanwhile, the enemy team still have all of their best tanks still alive. The overwhelming majority of the enemy team's casualties have been their bottom tier tanks. While we're puzzling this one out, let's just take a look at the Sperrpanzer again. You see him there on the map. Alicat asked the Sperrpanzer and the EBR to go and sit in the cap circle to put some pressure on the enemy team. That's a good idea. The EBR, who's a one-shot kill, also decided that it was a good idea. But the Sperrpanzer is having none of that. He's sitting at the back of the map. And if you're not going to put pressure on the cap with the EBR, then the next best thing that you could do if you're in a light tank like the Sperrpanzer is, oh, I don't know, maybe head off into the woods over there where we know there are some enemy tanks and spot them. But no, he's sitting at the back waiting for the heavies, mediums and tank destroyers to go and find targets for his 90mm gun. So add this ingredient to the mix and see if you can figure out the mystery. How can it be possible that the enemy team are getting their asses kicked so badly when they still have all three of their top tier tanks alive? Although none of them have killed anything, which might go some way towards explaining matters, but also the fact that Alicat's team are being forced to push into a forest and the best scout available on the team is sitting behind the heavies and the tank destroyers, waiting for them to find targets for him to shoot at. It's the tier 7s who are carrying this battle. But that isn't the main ingredient in today's murder mystery, because there are still 3 enemy tier 9s alive, the Martian, the Leopard prototype and the Jagdtiger. And they're soon going to be the last 3 tanks on the enemy team left alive. There's the Jagdtiger. He's just managed to get himself a kill. Congratulations, well done, the match is nearly over. You're in a top tier tank destroyer with a 128mm gun and you've just killed something. But where's the Leopard prototype? He's clearly not at the top of the hill. If he was, he would have been spotted by now. He has never been spotted once during the course of this entire match. And he's not at the top of the hill. So where the hell is he? Because don't forget, Alicat's team have swept across this map from 3 different directions. Right now, Alicat and the Tiger P, and the majority of his team, are approaching the enemy spawn. And they've approached this spawn from 3 different directions. The hill at the top, the plateau to the north of the lake in the middle of the map, and the open field to the southwest. That Leopard prototype has to have started from the spawn, because that's why we call it a spawn. Where did he go from there? He didn't go to the top of the hill. He had to be dead. He didn't head across the middle of the map, because there are multiple tanks, mediums and tank destroyers that have swept across there. And he didn't go to the field at the bottom, because we've had a whole bunch of tanks fight their way across there without ever, at any point, any of them, seeing this Leopard prototype. So thinking about it, the only way this guy could have gone was to head south, and then hide in the bushes in the bottom corner of the map. Right here. Except he hasn't, because he's not there. That's where Alicat is right now, and there's no Leopard prototype here. Where the hell did he go? Where is he? He can't have just disappeared. Well, let's think about this for a minute. He definitely didn't go to the north and then fight his way through Alicat's team up there, because they would have seen him, and he has never been spotted during the entire course of this game. He definitely didn't head across the plateau to the north of the lake, because he would have been spotted by the mediums and tank destroyers that swept across there. But it's possible that he was lurking in this bottom southeast corner and just waiting for everybody to drive on by and finish off the rest of his team. And then once Alucard passed him by, he left the bottom southeast corner of the map and headed over to the west to find a new hiding spot. But just think about what that would have entailed, because don't forget, he's never been spotted. So in order to pull that off successfully, he would have had to known how to take advantage of every dip and fold in the contours of the ground. He would have had to move from bush to bush. Basically, this guy's a ninja. He has a complete understanding of the concealment mechanics in World of Tanks. And he's mastered the ability of moving around the map without being detected. A fairly useful skill, I'm sure you'll agree, in a fast medium tank like the Leopard prototype. Have a look at the map for a second, see how much of the map the team have covered in their efforts to try to find this Leopard prototype. In fact, the only possible place this guy can be right now is in the top northwest corner, and that's where they're all heading. Well, I say that's where they're all heading. The Sperrpanzer hasn't moved for the last 5 minutes. He doesn't want to cap, he doesn't want to scout, he's just condescending in chat to anybody who suggests that he might not be making the best possible use of the potential abilities of his tank, and when there's one tank left on the enemy team, and just at the precise moment when the team could most make use of a fast scout tank to actually flush out this Leopard prototype, he's sitting on his arse and letting the Jagdpanther... I'm not making this up. Look at the map. Look at the top northwest corner. He's letting the Jagdpanther and the TS5 down to the south do the scouting for him. And this is the scout on the winning team. I mean, how badly must the enemy team have sucked overall to be losing to a team that lost almost all of its tier 9s within the first few minutes of the match and had a scout as bad as that guy? Well, perhaps it had something to do with the fact that the guy who was clearly the best player on their team, judging by his ability to remain undetected, despite an entire team scouring the map for him for the entire match, who basically did nothing other than hide right from the get-go. I mean, well done to Alucard, top of the team on both damage and experience earned as a bottom tier heavy tank in a tier 9 battle. And, you know, he didn't do anything spectacular, he just played it safe and methodical, which is exactly the way that you're supposed to play it when you're in that kind of situation. And well done to all of the other tier 7s and tier 8s on the team, not so much the tier 9s, like I said. The Waffenträger Panzer IV and the T10 basically just threw their lives away right at the start of the match, the first 2 casualties, although despite that they still earned more experience than the scout tank, the Sperrpanzer, who stayed alive the entire game, and never so much as got a scratch on his paintwork, largely by virtue of never doing anything remotely risky, and that's reflected in his score, 471 experience. Thanks for turning up, great to have you on the team. Speaking of people that it was great to have on the team, what the hell was the story behind that Leopard prototype? He drove 680 metres, and that's it, that's all he did. He never fired a shot. He just drove the tank 680 metres, and then the match ended. But he drove that 680 metres with enemy tanks closing in from all directions, and never once got spotted. Now, you don't do that by accident. That takes a certain level of knowledge and skill. A certain level of knowledge and skill that the team would probably have found extremely useful in a top tier tank in a tier 9 battle on Malinovka. And yet right from the start of this match, in fact probably before the countdown ended, this guy had already decided that he wanted nothing to do with his team. So at this point in today's murder mystery, I'm handing this one over to you because I'm out of ideas. Why did this guy do what he did? How was he able to do what he did? And where the hell did he end up hiding? Did he decide to throw the match because XVM had told him that his team only had a 24% chance of winning? And so he basically ensured that his team were going to lose right before the match started by doing absolutely nothing. Where the hell did he go? How did he manage to remain undetected? But perhaps most importantly, what kind of creative tortures do you have in mind for top tier players on your team who conspire to throw the game as convincingly as that guy did? Looking forward, as ever, to seeing your opinions in the comments, and as always, hope you enjoyed the video, take care, and I'll catch you next time.